صل على محمد وآل محمد. Sisters, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Eid Mubarak to all of you. It is the day of Eid for us, and so inshallah we'll keep it pleasant. Everybody will cooperate. We don't have to shout and make things unpleasant to keep the silence. Inshallah, we'll begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran. Please welcome Brother Amiri with another loud salawat. Ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم وكان بالمؤمنين للمؤمنين بأن لهم من الله فضلا كبيرا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Inshallah, before we continue with our, mashallah, talented youth reciters, just a couple of announcements. So firstly, if you haven't seen, alhamdulillah, we have some of the youth of our community that are part of the Muslim Girl Scouts that are selling the Girl Scout cookies outside. If you haven't had a chance yet, they're about to wrap it up before the lecture begins, so please avail yourself of their business. And then also, alhamdulillah, we have our own community Mecca Market has a booth outside by the foyer as well, and they have lots of great free samples available. So if you haven't tried them, please do so as well. Inshallah, we'll continue with the presentations by our youth. We have Brother Farhan who will be presenting a surah of the Quran. Please welcome him with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Another loud salawat for the brother. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Next, we have some of the youth who will be presenting poetry. Please welcome Sister Tawhida with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Salaman Mahdi bakal bemeraboniat. Salaman bepokio belot bemeraboniat. Salaman belazahoi kemiresan zohurebu. Salaman bebusahoi kemiresan bedasberu. Salaman bemadiwo bakal bemeraboniat.
Next we have Sister Zainab Rizvi who will be presenting a poem. Please welcome her with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Missing in action, inshallah. We will continue with the next youth that we have. Please welcome Sister Fatima and Zahra Mubarak with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we celebrate the birth of our Mahdi. We smile and clap out loud for the birth of our Mahdi. Today we celebrate. Today we celebrate the birth of our Savior. On this blessed day of Shaban, we call out your name. Your Shia are waiting for, O Mahdi, we are clear. All the peoples and angels await that blessed day. Today we clap and say, our Mahdi, where are you? We clap, we smile and clap out loud for the birth of our Mahdi. Today we celebrate. O Mahdi, today Muhammad Zahra is in smiles. Oh Mahdi, your Shia are really happy for you. Oh Mahdi, you're the one and only path of Allah. Oh Mahdi, you are the one and the great successor. Oh, we love so much until you come. We smile and clap out loud for the birth of our Mahdi. Today we celebrate. Oh Imam, your love is instilled in my heart forever. Oh Imam, I will pray every day for you appearance. Oh Imam, big and small, count out your name on this great day. Oh Imam, we all say, Ya Mahdi, Imam Raniya. Oh Mahdi, you're the one we're waiting. We smile and clap out loud for the birth of our Mahdi. Today we celebrate.
Next we have brothers Nima, Ilya, and Amir Mahdi that will be presenting a surah of the Quran. Please welcome them with another loud salawat. Ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Next we have Sister Zainab. Please welcome her with another loud salawat. Ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
How can I die before I behold you? One from Abu Turab. I asked for a glimpse of you. If death comes to me, my Lord, me, Mawla, before you, my soul will complain. Haydar, when will he come to me? Isn't it painful to die before I see you? I will tell you, I waited so long till my death, but Haydar, your son I didn't see even until after my death. It breaks my heart how plants whirled and moved. Behold you, but my eyes don't. Is this true? And now, when the sun of my life has set, my heart weeps and my soul is upset. But wait, wipe tears, there is a hope. I recited Dua Ahad, that promise is a hope. For I will die, but my soul will wait. As I await, but death was in my fate. My soul will leave my body to go there. I know you visit Jannat al-Baqi to share your pain with Hassan as he knows pain of betrayal, and narrate for Sajjad ibn Husayn's farewell. To Baba you say, I am alone, my father. To Abbas you look when you need a brother, and then you turn towards Abu Talib and wail, you are a guardian of Rasul, and I am son of Batul. Mahdi, my soul is deaf to listen to your voice, but I can feel your pain in my heart and I cry. I sit between demolished shrines and weep, where I know many awaited souls asleep, who are in strangers' lands, but for you, they are all waiting. Where are you? Where are you awaiting? Where are you?
Next we have Brother Amir Ali. Please welcome him with another loud salawat. Ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بیا تا که زهرا به غابت بگیرد بیا تا که زینب گلابت بگیرد علی پیشت آیات قرآن گرفته بخوان تا دم مستجابت بگیرد بیا تا که عباس پشتت بتازد بیا تا که اکبر رقابت بگیرد که عالم ببیند حسین آمد حسینی ترین انقلابت بگیرد بیا تا که ایوان طلای نجفم 110 سبو از شرابت بگیرد تو آبی جوابی حساب و کتابی تو معمار سهمی بقیه خرابی شهابی شرابی تو پایان خوابی نفسهای نابی
Again, one louder salawat for our child in the side. Allah salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Next we have Brother Rayan Mirza who will be presenting a poem. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before we proceed with the lecture, just a reminder that there's a children's program going on downstairs for kids 4 to 10. So let's make sure kids older than 10 are sitting with their parents in the prayer hall, and kids under 4, there's a classroom that's open that you can take toddlers there. We want to make sure we don't have too many little kids or older kids in the children's program where it becomes disruptive for the volunteers. For all the marhum, mu'mineen and mu'minat, for the ulama, the shuhada, particularly the shuhada of Gaza, of Lebanon, of Yemen, of Iraq, of Afghanistan, of Pakistan and Iraq and elsewhere, let us remember them all with a Surah Al-Fatiha. Inshallah, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our respected guest scholar, Sayyid Shaan Rizvi. Please welcome him with another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين طه فاطر السماوات والأرضين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I want to wish everybody a very happy and auspicious 15th of Shaban, Eid Mubarak to all of you and to all of the Shia all across the world that are celebrating on this day. Please recite a salawat. Because it is the day of 15th Shaban, as you know, our topic has been this discussion about how we benefit from the Holy Quran. And that is especially true because the month of Ramadan is coming, and we know that the month of Ramadan is the month of the Holy Quran. But because of the date also, I would like to offer some remarks also about Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Just like yesterday, I will start because I don't want our youngsters to be without participation in our gathering. So I will have some questions for the youth to participate in. Inshallah, if they get those questions right, then they can claim their prize. Just as we did yesterday, I'll start with some questions, and then in the middle of the lecture, I'll also pause for some questions for the youth. Inshallah, please recite a salawat. Just to start off with some remarks regarding Imam al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif, the one we are here to commemorate, the one we are here to remember, to connect our hearts to, and ultimately to pray for. To pray that we are of those people that will recognize the Imam when he comes. Talked a little bit about that yesterday. When we pray for the Imam, ultimately the benefit of praying for the Imam also goes back to us, because it gives us a direction and an orientation. Sometimes what happens with religion and religious people is that as soon as someone becomes a little religious, they become arrogant, right? It starts becoming about me. So for example, right, an alim or a maulana, right, he might expect somebody to now hold doors for him or bring him food or things of that sort, right? So it becomes about the person. When we pray for the Imam, right, we are connecting ourselves to that divine system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set up on this earth. Meaning that we are connecting ourselves to the means through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will recognize His purpose. Meaning what? It's not about me or you. It is about connecting ourselves to the Imam. It allows us to get outside of ourselves. Okay, that's one point. Please recite a salawat. We hear this expression quite a bit regarding the Imam, that يَمْلَأُ الْأَرْضَ قِسْطًا وَعَدْلًا كَمَا مُلِئَتْ ظُلْمًا وَجَوْرًا. When the Imam comes, he will fill the earth with justice and equity as it was filled with injustice and oppression. And he will fill the earth with justice and equity as it was filled with injustice and oppression before him. This was not just the goal of the Imam, right? This was actually the goal of all of the prophets. Right? As the Holy Quran says, that one of the primary goals of the prophets was not just to teach us ahkam, wasn't just to teach us the rules of halal food and halal income and haram income, but it was to establish justice in society. So when Imam comes, his primary goal will also be to establish that justice. According to some ahadith, when he comes and he appears in the holy city of Mecca, for those people who will be doing tawaf in front of the holy Kaaba, he will say to those people who are doing tawaf that for those of you who are doing recommended tawaf, move aside for those who are doing their wajib tawaf. Meaning what? Even from the very beginning, his movement is rooted in justice. Now, another characteristic of the Imam that we have to mention, right? And this is alluded to in the Holy Quran. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. We desire to show favor to those who were deemed weak in the land, and to make them imams, and to make them the heirs. So during the time of Zuhur, one of the really beautiful things that we see in some of the ahadith about Zuhur is that the people of Iman, the people of akhlaq, the people of faith, the people of morality, right, will be elevated. They will be respected in society. Right? They will be ennobled. They will not be disgraced. Which is the exact opposite of what we see today. Right? Today, if someone has faith, if someone wants to do the right thing, he doesn't want to cut corners. He wants to be ethical about his lifestyle, his purchases, what products he supports, how he interacts with other people. What do people say? They say that this person is a simpleton. They say that this person is going to be taken advantage of. Right? They say that this person is too simple for this life. He's not cut out. Right? But when the Imam comes, right, the very people, right, who have those qualities, who have that taqwa, who have that iman, right, they will be recognized for those qualities. Right? It's the exact opposite of what we have today. As the Quran says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, right? The most noble of you is the one with the most taqwa. Has that manifested in society? No. The most noble of us in society is not the one with the most taqwa. Right? The most noble of us is the one who is the best looking, who has the fairest complexion, who has the nicest home, right? Who has the best career prospects. Right? So when we hope for the manifestation of that verse that is going to come during the time of the Imam. Okay, finally, the last thing that I want to say about the Dhuhr. Right? Another thing, again alluded to in the Holy Quran. هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. Allah is the one who sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of Haqq, so that He may make it prevail over all religion, even though the mushrikeen may dislike it. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises in the Holy Quran that He will make the deen prevail over all of religion. Okay. Prevail over all of religion. So this is a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When has that promise again manifested in the world so far? If we look at the time of the Prophet and immediately after the Prophet, right, even those who lived with the Prophet were not able to manifest this verse of the Quran. Right? Islam in its true form did not prevail during the time of the Khulafa. During the time of the Umayyads and Abbasids, Islam in its true form, right, did not prevail over the earth. Right? That promise, right, is something that can only come true during the Dhuhr. Right? And if we think about it, it's something that only the Dhuhr can fulfill. It's not a matter of, right, do we have more Mawlanas? Right? Do we have more mujtahids in our community? Do we have more huffaz of Quran? Right? That's not going to create what this verse is talking about. Right? If we just had more conferences about Islam, if we just had more speakers come, if we just had a better alim, we had a bigger center, no. لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. Right? For that promise to be enacted, right, you need a divine guide. You need a divine source for that promise to be enacted, right? Not you and I. Right? Not you and I. We're not going to be able to do that. Okay? So that's one of the proofs for the necessity of the Imam coming, is that these ayat of Quran have not been fulfilled. Please recite a salawat. So now before we get into our topic, right, which was benefiting from the Holy Quran, I would just again like to invite the youth, right, to participate with me. And I do have some questions from yesterday's lecture on this topic, and then later on I'll ask you some questions about Imam Mahdi. Okay? So if any of the youth who are here, right, and I specifically request youth, nobody above the age of 18, right, who was here for yesterday's lecture, if you could raise your hand and give me the answer, I would really appreciate it. Okay? So the first question, right, based on yesterday's lecture, which was about benefiting from the Quran, can any one of the youth, and these are not, right, these questions are moderate, right, they're not the most basic questions. I tried to make them a little bit challenging, okay? So the first question is, can anyone from the youth raise their hand and tell me the difference between tilawa and tadabbur? Okay, we learned these two words in the lectures. One is tilawa of the Holy Quran, one is tadabbur of the Holy Quran. Okay, so these were both mentioned and explained. Okay. Yes, go ahead. So let's go with her first.
She can go.
She wants to go?
Okay. Well, tilawa is basically like the recitation.
Okay.
And tadabbur is like the contemplation.
Okay, tilawa is recitation of the verses, and tadabbur means contemplation about the verses of the Holy Quran. Very good. Please recite a salawat. So in order to reflect on the Holy Quran properly, we said that there are certain prerequisites yesterday. Okay, this is a little bit, again, you have to have been paying attention, right? There are certain prerequisites, and I'm challenging you guys a little bit, I'm pushing you, right? There are certain things you need in order to do proper tadabbur on the Holy Quran. Okay, we mentioned them, right? Does anyone of the youth remember what those things were? Right? What do we need in order to do tadabbur of the Holy Quran? Okay, yes.
Tadabbur is like reciting slowly, properly, with proper grammar.
Okay, that's tartil. So tadabbur means contemplation, right? So what do we say we need in order for someone to do proper tadabbur of the Quran? What do they need? Okay, yes. Wudu? Okay, that's a good answer, right? But not the answer I'm looking for, yes. Generally, it's good to be in a state of wudu while you are reciting the Quran, but you don't need that for tadabbur. Okay? Okay, so, alright, I'll come back to that question. Let's go to another one. Okay.
Someone has an answer.
Someone does? Okay, yes. Yes, very good. Taqwa, mashallah. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, one of our youngest members, right, is also one of our smartest. Okay? So, one of the prerequisites in order to do proper tadabbur of the Quran was taqwa. And we explained why that was yesterday. We mentioned a few others. Okay. Right, so here's another question, that how do we do tadabbur, right, if the Quran was revealed regarding a different time and a different place? Right, so how is it possible to do tadabbur of the Quran given that the Quran is talking about a different time and a different place? Right, so how can we contemplate and apply the Quran? Right, we talked about that as well yesterday. Anyone? Yes. Say that again. Okay, very good, right? You take, yes. So the Quran is talking about a different time and a different place. But you can still relate the incidents of the Quran, right, to your own life, right, in a way. Very good. MashaAllah. Please recite a salawat. Okay, the last question again from yesterday's lecture, right? Either we have a lot of new people here or you guys were not paying attention yesterday. Or you forgot, right? None of those options is good. Okay? The last one, right? What was the example? Can anyone explain the example yesterday given regarding the tadabbur on the verse regarding the spider web yesterday, right? We talked about, right, what that verse was, and if we were to do tadabbur on it, right, what are some of the things that that verse might call us to, right, if we are to reflect on it? Anyone remember? Yes, in the red.
Like, the spider web must be weak, but it must go to. No, I suppose.
Okay, you're on the right track, right? Can anyone from above the youth, right, help him out? Right, what were some of the things we talked about, right, regarding the tadabbur of the verse of the spider web? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Building anything on a spider web is the weakest.
Okay, very good, mashallah. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay guys, so we have work to do, right? It was just one day, right? And not getting a lot of responses here, right? So that means that either people are not in the mood to learn, or they forgot, right? Or many of these things, right? It's important, right? When we think about, right, religion, right? Our religious life is only going to go so far as our knowledge takes us, right? Of course, it's not knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It's knowledge for the sake of gaining, like, proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But that knowledge has to be there, right? Meaning that you can only keep doing the same things over and over again for a certain amount of time before you're going to start asking questions, right? So we have to have this journey of wanting to learn, right? And wanting to have some ilmi components to our discussions, right? If we're just here to celebrate and not try to learn, that's not going to take us very far as a community. Okay, please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, so a couple more, so I'll pause with the questions, right? We'll finish our topic, and then at the end, I have some questions relating to Imam Mahdi, right? Which I'll again ask the youth to help me out with. Okay? So, what we said yesterday was that benefiting from the Quran has 3 levels. We said it has tilawa, tadabbur, and amal. Tilawa being the recitation, tadabbur being contemplation, and amal being action. And each of these is important in its own right. And we said, some of the merits of tilawa are that it brings the angels into the home, it expels the shayateen from the home, it's good to recite with a beautiful voice, right? And all of these things. And by no means are we saying that tilawa is not important. But what we said was that in order for our relationship with the Holy Quran to go deeper, okay, there has to be a level of tadabbur on the Quran as well, which means reflection. Which means that we might have to read the Quran with translation. And the Quran itself tells us to do tadabbur. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do tadabbur on the verses of the Quran. So we know this is something good. Right, so if we're really going to benefit, we have to go beyond the first stage of just recitation to reflection. Alright, now the question was, how do we do that? Well, we talked about that yesterday in terms of looking at the verses of Quran, taking just what is apparent from the Quran, right? just that first meaning that comes to mind when you read the Quran, not going too deep into it, right? You don't need a tafsir, you don't need to consult anyone, just taking the meaning of the verses of the Quran as they appear to you, okay? And then trying to apply it to our own lives. Thinking about, how does this verse apply to my life? Right? How is it that these verses, what is the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to give me through these verses? How is He trying to guide me through these verses, right? This is tadabbur. Now the question might be that, well, if I am doing tadabbur and I'm reflecting on the verses of the Holy Quran, what is it, right, that is stopping me, right, from coming up with my own meanings of the Holy Quran? Right? What is it that's stopping me from thinking, right, coming up with my own meanings and my own understandings of the Holy Quran? Right? We also can't do that. We know that, right, the Quran has its own meanings. We can't impose meanings on that. Right? So there is a term called tafsir bil ra'i, to give a tafsir with your own opinion, okay? Right? Which is wrong, right? Which has been condemned. So the question is, right, although we are to do tadabbur, how can we avoid doing tafsir bil ra'i? Tafsir bil ra'i, right, means to interpret according to one's own terms. Right? I read the Quran and I decide what it says. Well, that sounds kind of similar to contemplation. Okay? So the first thing we need to say is that tadabbur is different from tafsir. Right? Tafsir is trying to access the deeper meanings of the Holy Quran itself. Right? And proper tafsir is done using certain tools. Right? For example, grammar. For example, various tools of language and rhetoric and, ahadith, different types of tools you can use to try to understand the various layers of the Quran. That is tafsir. Okay? Tadabbur is something different. Tadabbur is just to reflect on the meanings of Quran, right? Not to try to access the deeper meanings. Is that clear? So you're looking at what just the apparent meaning of the Quran is, without trying to get into tafsir, which is the deeper level. Okay. Now, when we do tadabbur, right, what we are saying is that we are trying to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, is guiding us to or wants us to do from this verse of the Quran, from what He wants from us as a whole, and how He wants us to be through reflecting on these verses of the Holy Quran. Okay? So there's a difference between, right, sitting down and saying that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, says, versus having a humble reflection, saying that I think this is what, right, this verse is indicating here. Does that make sense? Right? So always having that humility, not pushing our own agenda, our own views onto the Holy Quran, but being open to what the verse says, right? And again, not engaging in tafsir, but, right, reading the plain meaning of the verse, right? Just the apparent meaning. We gave the example yesterday of Inna Allaha yuhibbul muhsinin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who do good. That's a fairly simple verse that you can understand, right, at a very basic level, and you can take benefit from. Okay, now you can contemplate it. And similarly, many verses of the Quran are like this, where you can just read them and you can understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Okay. So we gave an example yesterday of the spider web, right? Now, right, I want to give one more example of this, right? Again, the idea is taking the verses of the Holy Quran and reflecting on how they might apply to me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right, in those verses of Surah Al-Duha, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Right, so in these verses of Surah Al-Duha, okay, so now these verses came when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, is, right, when several verses of the Quran had not been revealed for a long period, right? There was a gap in revelation, right? And these verses are coming now as a comfort to the Prophet. Meaning what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is comforting the Prophet by saying what? saying that your Lord has not abandoned you, nor is He angry with you. And the akhirah, right, is better for you than the present. And your Lord will so soon give you that which you are pleased with. Okay. So first of all, this is a very beautiful, right, relationship between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. That the Prophet is grieved, right, at not having received revelation. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives these verses to comfort the heart of the Prophet. وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Did He not find you an orphan and give you shelter? وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Did He not find you lost and guided you? وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Did He not find you needy and He gave you, right, sustenance? فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Right? So don't push away, don't take advantage of the orphan, nor repel the beggar. And, right, proclaim the bounty of your Lord. And so these verses come at a time when the Prophet is distressed, right? He's sad about people mocking him for not having received ayat of the Holy Quran. So this comes as a comfort to the Prophet's heart. So the questions now, if you read these and you reflect on these, the questions we might want to ask ourselves are, is there any time in my own life where, I felt abandoned, ostracized, that, perhaps people were mocking me. Perhaps they were making fun of what I was trying to do in my life. Right? Perhaps I'm a Muslim student who goes to a public school and I am, right, ostracized and bullied because of my faith. Right? Was there a time in my life where, or even now, is there a time where I can benefit from hearing this message, that your Lord will soon give you that which you are pleased with? Right? And furthermore, what is the connection when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to comfort the Prophet, but then He is asking the Prophet to do certain things? Okay, so He's saying that, well, take care of the orphans, take care, don't repel those who come to beg and ask of you, and proclaim the bounty of your Lord, right? Show the bounty of your Lord, and there's different ways you can show that. That's a different discussion. What is the connection between these things? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is comforting, but then He is also telling the Prophet to do these things. Okay, well, in my life, if I'm ever feeling down, right? If I'm feeling depressed, if I'm feeling, just sad, let's say, right? If I'm being ostracized, made fun of, right? Can I take solace in the fact that perhaps I too, like the Prophet, I will have a future, right, that is better than now, right? And if that is the case, can I also, like the Prophet is commanded to do, can I also, right, find a way to take care of the orphan, to give to the beggar, and to proclaim the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means to act in service in ubudiyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Do you see the connection there where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the Prophet, but through tadabbur, right, I'm thinking about how these verses also apply to my life. Right? They also apply to my life, right? So this is going a little bit deeper with the Holy Quran. Not just reading it, right? Not just reading it, okay? Today what we'd like to say, so that was regarding tadabbur, right? Today what we would like to say is that, right, the final stage of connection with the Holy Quran, right? If you go past tilawa, if you go past tadabbur, the final stage of connection with the Holy Quran is amal, right? Is amal, which means action, right? Right? So the ideal, right? If we really, really want a relationship, right, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran, okay, then, right, not only should we read the Quran in Arabic, not only should we contemplate on its meanings and try to bring them into our life, but the most important and the most difficult stage is action, right? Acting on the meanings of the Holy Quran. So for example, if you were to read a page of Quran per day or 2 pages of Quran per day, let's say that's your routine. Maybe you reflect on just a few verses. You read a few verses and reflect on them and they come to mind and you think about what they might mean and how they apply to you. But then you take one verse of the Holy Quran each day and you try to act on what that verse means to you, right? What the apparent sense of that verse is, right? وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. If the beggar comes to you, don't repel him. It's very straightforward as to what it's saying. وَأَمَّا نِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. As for the ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, you try to, right, share it, proclaim it in some way. Just take one verse each day and take what that verse is saying to you and apply that in your own life. Just apply one verse every day, right? Your relationship with the Quran, right, will grow tremendously just through this technique. Right? Because ultimately, when we read the Quran, right, and ultimately when we have a relationship with the Imam, right, this is not just an academic exercise, right? These are not just thought experiments, right? You're familiar with the term thought experiment, right? It means that you're just doing something for fun to see what the outcome would be. Right? This is not just an academic pursuit when you're reading the Quran, as we've said multiple times, right? This is a spiritual endeavor. Okay, now once you see it as a spiritual endeavor, right, in order to grow, therefore there is a way that you can grow spiritually through this text. Okay, so we've outlined the stages: tilawat, tadabbur, and amal. The hardest level of all of these is going to be amal. Why? Because we can all read the Holy Quran, right? Most of us, I would say, it doesn't seem like we do a lot of tadabbur, but at the very least we are capable of doing tadabbur, right? If we were to set out to it, right? But the hardest level of this is amal. How many things have we heard, right, in our life from the mimbar that we don't practice? Right? That we don't practice, right? Things that we know are true. I'm not talking about things that we're not sure about, right? I'm saying things that we know we should do or we shouldn't do, or a certain direction we should take our life. Okay? Right? That is our weakness, right? Because ultimately, right, Iman in its truest sense, right, is also an action. If we are going to call ourselves mu'min, right, then that Iman in its highest form is also an action. It's not just a state of the soul, right? It's a state of the soul that is manifested through your actions. If it does not manifest through your actions, that means that Iman is not fully there. Amir al-Mu'mineen, qala Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, su'ila anil iman, faqal, al-imanu ma'rifatun bil-qalb, wa iqrarun bil-lisan, wa amalun bil-arkan. He said that Iman is ma'rifah, right, through the heart. And iqrar bil-lisan, which means to admit something with your tongue, wa amal bil-arkan, and to act with the limbs. Right? When Amir al-Mu'mineen is describing Iman, it's not just ma'rifah with the qalb. Right? It's not just to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Rather, it is iqrarun bil lisan wa amalun bil arkan, to act on the dictates of Iman. Right? And similarly, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Lo kana al-imanu kalaman, lam yunzal fihi sawmun wala salatun wala halalun wala haramun. Right? If Iman was just words, right, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have revealed halal and haram and sawm and salat. The fact that these things are part of our deen shows that true Iman, in its truest sense, okay, is an action. Right? In its truest sense is an action. Okay? And we have verses from the Holy Quran that indicate this as well, right? وَقَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلُ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. The Bedouin Arabs say that we have believed, we have Iman. The Prophet is told to say, no, you have Islam, right? You do not yet have Iman, right? Iman has not yet properly entered your hearts. Okay, so now we have to see, are we also like this? Right? There's a difference between Islam and Iman. Right? So there's many examples we can give where, right, for that Iman, for that faith to be deeply rooted in our hearts, right, it needs to be combined with Amal. Right? For that relationship to grow with the Holy Quran, it needs to be one of action. Right? Just as we know, for example, Iblis, right, worshipped with the angels, right, for thousands and thousands of years. Right? He knew, right, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was. Of course, he knew the maqam of the angels, right? But one of his tests was to, right, do sujood to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Okay, now he was not able to do that, despite his knowledge, right? Despite his marifah, right? And we know that Iblis is not mu'min, right? We don't consider him as one with Iman. Why? Because he was not able to act on that which he knew, right? Okay, similarly, there is a story, right, narrated by one of our very well-known scholars. I won't take his name. He says that a hadith that I don't remember the source he uses, but this scholar says that when Muawiyah was passing away, he makes a wasiyah to certain family members. He says that there are 2 packages, right, over there as he's dying on his deathbed, right? He says there's these 2 packages over there. Bring them for me and put them, right, inside my kafan. So the family members ask, what are these packages for exactly? Right? Why do you want these buried with your kafan? He says that, Muawiyah says, one day I saw the Prophet of God. He was cutting his hair and he was cutting his nails. And some of that hair and nails, they fell on the ground. And I collected that hair and nails, right? And I put them in a package. And that's what those are. And I would like to bury the hair and the nails of the Prophet with me. Okay? So even someone like Muawiyah, he recognizes the maqam of the Prophet. Right? Muawiyah, right? All of these people, right? A lot of these kuffar, they knew who the Prophet was. Right? They knew the maqam of the spiritual rank of the Prophet. Right? The difference was that they were not able to act on what the Prophet was telling them to act on. Right? We wouldn't say that Muawiyah is one with Iman. Right? We wouldn't say Muawiyah is one with Iman. Right? So Iman is that when something has taken deep hold in your heart, right, that is reflected in your actions. Okay, so how do we do this with the Holy Quran? Right? Again, my suggestion is, as you are reading, tilawah, right, 1 or 2 pages, then tadabbur, right, reflection as you're reading on some of the verses you're reading. So that means you're reading with translation. But then take that one verse that sticks out to you and try to act on that verse. Okay, so for example, we gave this verse several times, right? Inna Allaha yuhibbul muhsinin, right? Allah loves those who are muhsin, who do good. Right? So, very simple. Find a good deed that you can do, right, on that day. Specifically, right, be very intentional about it. Right? Or, right, for example, right, amma sa'ila fala tanha, right, as wa amma bi ni'mati rabbika fahaddith, right, as for those who ask, right, don't repel them, right, meaning what? If someone has a need from you, right, make an effort that day not to push them away, whether it's a beggar or someone else, right, don't push the asker away from you, right, and proclaim wa amma bi ni'mati rabbika fahaddith. Okay, so this is, right, proclaim the bounty of your Lord. Okay, well, what are the different ways I could do this? Maybe I could be intentional about saying the adhkar of Islam more so that day, right? Saying Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen more so than I normally do. Okay. What if I come across the verses about Prophet Musa and the story of Dastan Musa and the fear that his mother experienced, right, while putting, right, her child into the river. So maybe I make that day, right, about realizing that I don't have full control over everything. Realizing that there are some instances where I have to do tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where I don't know the outcome of this action, just like Hazrat Musa's mother didn't know the outcome of putting her baby in the river. Right? What about if I come across some verses about khushu, which means this humility and reverence towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that touches me. Well, I try to cultivate that reverence in my heart, right? That day, right? I try to be reverential towards everything I see. I try to have this state of reverence in my heart. Okay? So these are just some, I'm giving you some ideas, right? This is up to you to apply. Right? Ultimately, if we want our wujud to come close to the wujud of the Holy Quran, right? In a real sense. And again, Quran is a book of self-building, right? In a spiritual sense, right? If you want your nafs, your soul, to come close to the Quran, which by the way is also coming close to the Imam, then that has to be through amal. If you just start small, right? Take these verses that have very basic meanings and start implementing them in your life. And start implementing these verses in your life. Right? So just as a recap, right? Tilawa, tadabbur, and amal. Right? If you follow these three stages, right, and you have a program that incorporates all of these, slowly, right, you'll see that relationship, that familiarity with the Quran, right, and ultimately with the Imam, and ultimately with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, begin to take hold. Okay, so with that, right, I have spoken too much, right, and I'll pause there for that topic. And I'd like to end, right, the lecture just by going back to some of our youth to ask them some questions, right, about Imam al-Mahdi. Right? So now, right, you don't have the excuse that you don't remember what I said yesterday, because these are all new questions, right? Just about the Imam. Okay? So we'll start off with an easy one, right? We haven't had too many people, win so far. Can any of the youth tell me, right, what is the name of Imam Mahdi's mother? Okay. So you raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Narjis, very good. Okay, please recite salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So any of those who have answered the question correctly, please see Brother Arsalan afterwards to collect your prize. Okay? Second question will be, where, right, so we alluded to this yesterday, where was Imam Mahdi last seen? Right? Where was he last seen? Yes. Samara, where is that? Samara, Iraq. Very good, mashallah. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Okay, so now some of the questions get a little bit harder, right? So how is it possible, again, asking the youth, that the Imam lives as long as he does? Okay, so I already called on you, so I'm going to wait. So let's go up to you, yes. How is it possible that he lives, right, over 1,000 years?
Because he was the last Imam, and he was chosen to live the longest.
Okay, he was the last Imam and chosen to live the longest. Okay, good. Is there anyone else that can add to that? Okay, in the red.
Because Allah gave him that gift.
Allah gave him the gift. Okay, good. Yes? Yeah.
Because think about it, Prophet Isa has been living for longer, so Allah SWT would obviously had Prophet Imam Mahdi live that long too.
Okay, very good. Yes, so that's the answer I was looking for. That, of course, it is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, but right, the examples we have of Prophet Isa and Prophet Nuh show us that it's very possible for an Imam to also have a life that long. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. All right. So, which title, right? There's one of the titles or laqabs of Imam Mahdi is mentioned in the Holy Quran. Does anyone know which one? Right? So let's see. Okay, in the corner. Imam Zaman? No, it's not in the Quran. Okay, it's a good guess though. Right, so one of the titles of Imam Mahdi is mentioned in the Holy Quran itself. Is anyone on the sister side? Okay, so do you want to guess? Yes. Sahib al-Zaman? No. Unfortunately not that. Right? You want to hold on, let's see if anyone else has a guess and then we'll come to yes. Al-Qaim? No. Also not mentioned as far as I'm aware in the Quran. Anybody else? Okay. Yes. Very good, mashallah. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, so yes, the title of Imam Baqiyatullah is referenced in the Holy Quran. Okay? All right, very good. Two questions which are a little bit harder. Right? Now, why was the birth of Imam Mahdi kept a secret from the people? Right? Why was it kept secret? Right? At the time he was born, was this, okay, yes. Okay, so the government at the time wanted to kill him? Yes, very good. Can anybody add to that a little bit? Yes. Can you add to the answer?
To that, well, because at that time, like, there weren't a lot of followers of Imam Mahdi.
Okay.
That's when the people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to wait for him to bring the chance in to that when he had a lot of followers.
Okay, very good. Okay, both of you, I think we can, do you want to add to that?
Because people, because he was spreading, the bad guys were so mad because he was spreading so much Islam that he wanted to kill, that they want to kill him.
Yes, right. So we know that all of the imams had been killed at younger and younger ages, right? Immediately prior to Imam Mahdi, and they had imprisoned his father, right, who was living under what's called house arrest, right? He couldn't leave his house, right, in that place, Samarra, Iraq, right? So they were expecting this baby, and they wanted to kill that baby. So in those circumstances, the birth of the Imam was a secret. Right? So, okay, very good. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, the final question is, right, when will the Imams, right, the Zuhur happen? When will the Imam reappear? That's kind of a tough question, right? So, okay, I saw her hand. Yeah? You want to try? Okay. Yeah. Do you have an answer or no? No? Anyone else here? No? Okay. Anyone other than these three? I want to give other people a chance. Any of the other youth in the back? No? You? Okay, do you have an answer here? Yeah. Okay, whenever the time comes. Okay, that's good. Yes. Anyone who can add more detail to that answer? Okay. In the white?
Because when there's Yuj and Majuj,
okay. Okay, that's also true, yes.
Well, there are some signs, like for example, when the world is corrupt, like what's going on right now, or when that one army comes in to try to attack the Kaaba, but the ground is opening. So there are signs that tells us when he's coming.
Okay.
All in all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when he's coming.
Okay, very good, right? So, yes, please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Yes, so, of course, there are certain signs, right? His answer was also actually a very good one, right? Which is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. Okay, so ultimately, neither you nor I can claim that these signs are definitely, right, a sign of the Imam's immediate reappearance. Right now, right, other answers, right, when he has the right followers, right, which goes back to us, and when the people who are ready to follow him and others lose hope in other ideologies, right? when we lose hope in other ideologies as our saviors, right? That is the time, right, when the Imam Zuhur will manifest, right? So with that, inshallah, we'd like to close the program for tonight. I believe that there's going to be an amal, which will be announced by Brother Arsalan. Inshallah, if we could please end with everyone reciting Dua Imam al-Zaman together, inshallah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين
Bye bye.
So brothers and sisters, as we're aware, it's the night of 15th of Shaban, and there are amal and du'as that are recommended that we stay up all the way till the time of Fajr, which you are certainly encouraged to do so, but to ensure that we're all able to participate, we'll do a shortened version of the amal. We'll take about a 10-minute break right now. For some families who are trying to leave, they can leave. For those who'd like to stay for the amal, they can stay. So we'll start back up in about 10 minutes, right at 9:15. The things that we're doing tonight, so we're going to be doing Dua Kumail. Dua Kumail was specifically mentioned for the 15th of Shaban. There's a ziyarat of Imam Hussein, there's some short duas, and then we'll conclude with Munajat-e-Shabaniya. So we'll take about a 5-10 minute break. If you need to renew your wuzu or take a break, there's some snacks as well. And we'll start at 9:15 inshallah with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى